Back in January, President Trump made a promise to do something about voter fraud, something he said was widespread during the campaign.
If you look at voter registration, you look at the dead people that are registered to vote, who vote, you look at people that are registered in 2 states, you look at all of these different things that are happening with registration, you take a look at those registration, you're going to find, and we're going to do an investigation on it.
But 3 to 5 million illegal votes?
Well, we're going to find out, but it could very well be that much.
And Thursday, on day 112 of his presidency, Mr. Trump finally appears to be making good on that promise. He signed a new executive order Thursday establishing a Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. Deputy Director of the Brennan Center's Democracy Program, Myrna Perez, joins us now from New York to discuss this. Myrna, thanks for your time. I want our viewers to know what the president of your organization called this executive order today, quote, a sham and a distraction, just so everyone is clear on where your group's opinions are. But your organization does do a lot of work, takes a lot of surveys, collects a lot of information as it relates to this very topic. Just set the stage for us. How widespread an issue is voter fraud? How does it compare to voter suppression?
Voter suppression is a tremendously important issue today. There was a point in our country's history, and it's not that long ago, where politicians on both sides of the aisles thought it was in their interest to make sure that our democracy was robust and participatory. And in the last few years, we are seeing partisans trying to manipulate the rules of the game so that some people can participate and some people can't. And voter fraud is their mechanism for justifying extreme acts of voter suppression. The issue of voter fraud has been studied extensively in a number of different settings by a number of different people over a number of years. And the conclusion keeps being the same, which is voter fraud is extraordinarily rare. And the kinds of solutions that are being proposed to address voter fraud don't actually make our elections more secure or add more integrity to the system. They just put barriers in front of the ballot box.
So then what can we expect? President Trump has, through tweets and through interviews, stood by his position that potentially millions of Americans illegally voted. If you're saying voter registration fraud is rare, what will this commission, headed up by the vice president, find?
You've smushed together 2 different issues. The president is claiming that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally. He's also at points mentioned that there were people that were ineligible on the rolls. The Brennan Center and others have been saying for decades, yes, there are errors on our voter registration rolls. Election administrators need to be given the resources that they need. We need to have the policies in place to make sure that the rolls are as clean as possible. That is not the same thing as 3 to 5 million people who are ineligible and who are non-citizens voting in our elections. And conflating the two not only undermines the faith in our democracy, it prevents us from actually fixing a problem that should be easy to fix and for which there would be support on both sides of the aisles to address. My big concern is that this kind of commission is going to be a tremendous waste of resources and a distraction from problems that we do need to resolve, like how to get our registration rules cleaner, how to make sure that people who are eligible are voting and participating, how we deal with the fact that our voting machines are aged and likely to not function in any sort of meaningful way. How do we deal with the fact that we don't have poll workers that are appropriately trained to be able to handle the constantly shifting landscape? These are all things that we should be addressing. But instead, when we're chasing this phantom menace of voter fraud and then using the specter of voter fraud to justify all these policies that keep people from participating, we end up with a democracy that is going to shut certain voices out and a big waste of taxpayer money.
Now, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi essentially joins you in that view. Today, she said, quote, this is clearly intended to accelerate the vile voter suppression efforts in states across our nation. I'm just wondering how you can accurately predict the president's motives when this commission has only just been announced.
Well, It's not about predicting its motives, it's about unpacking the facts. He said something patently false, which was that 3 to 5 million people who are non-citizens voted in the 2016 election. We conducted a study. We spoke to 42 jurisdictions that one would find non-citizens voting if it in fact occurred, and we overwhelmingly got a response that the amount of non-citizens who voted in 2016 was negligible. 40 out of the 42 jurisdictions we spoke to indicated that they had no known incidences of non-citizen voting. In the 2 that did, it was under 30. We're talking about 0.001% of all of the ballots cast in those jurisdictions. Now, of course, we want our elections to be free from problems, free from fraud, free from threats to the integrity of the election, but the way to do it is to make sure that we're actually solving a problem in front of us, which is not the issue of non-citizen voting and it's not voter fraud.
And just in our last few seconds here, has your organization reached out to the White House to share findings and make recommendations?
We have published extensively on this topic. We've been publishing on the issue of voter fraud and actually identifying its instances and explaining when it's been overblown, and we've been doing this for a decade. We just issued a report last week, and we're very active in the public debate on this. My hope is that the public will see this for what it is, which is a distraction and something that shouldn't warrant very much attention and certainly shouldn't warrant taxpayer money.
Myrna Perez is with the Brennan Center for Justice and its democracy program. Thanks so much for your time today speaking with us from New York.
Thank you.